busy. Welcome everyone to tonight's Agenda Forum, Wednesday the 6th of March 2024, and thank you to everyone in the gallery that came tonight. We'll start with our opening acknowledgement of country. The City of Swan acknowledges the traditional custodians of this region, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. And we pay our respects to elders past and present and their descendants. Number 2, the disclaimer. The terms and conditions of entry into this meeting are posted at the entry on the public gallery, and members of the public are advised to read them prior to attending the meeting and abide by them, please. Tonight's attendance and apologies. We have councillors present. We have Councillor Dawn, who will be here after a meeting, and we have Councillor Singh attending electronically. And at this point, I'm not sure about Councillor Catalano, Prodovnik and Councillor Miles. Councillor Prodovnik will be a little bit late. Okay. Thank you. If I have any leave, there's no leave of absence currently. If anyone has a leave form, could they please submit it and pass it up to the front? And we have nil declarations of financial proximity interests and interests affecting impartiality. But if you do, there is the form underneath your desk in the drawer. If you could just pass that up, please. And that brings us to part 5, petitions. And we have Ms Lynn Deering on behalf of John and Wendy Farrant to retain Riverside Gardens All Abilities Playground. Thanks, Lynn. And just pop your microphone on.
Have I done that? My name is Lynn Deering and I'm a Woodbridge resident, and I table this petition on behalf of John and Wendy Farrant and residents. The petition asks Council to halt activities on the overflow car bays project that is proposed for Woodbridge Riverside Gardens. As we ask, this project degrades the park status. It decreases security, it increases risk for children while contravening the original design's principles prepared in conjunction with the disability sector. It does this by locating bays within the park area, thus removing playground space. It's placing car bays near the play area, which can create problems for children with autism. It's adding a second gate, which is increasing risk and safety concerns given it is near a watercourse. Ted, there has been no consultation and no effort to consult with nearby residents and those who supported the park in its formation. Even the Farrants found out about this just informally while speaking to some staff at the site. Last year, against the recommendation of staff, Council voted this option. Yet it removes playground space and it increases risk to council. A better solution is needed. Work is yet to commence. There is no urgency because the high school has now offered 20 car bays for use, the nearby high school. So the pressure's off and we can make a better decision. Residents want council to follow the original playground design principles and proposal prepared in conjunction with the disability sector, residents and Woodbridge Ratepayers Association to create a plan to improve the parking options, consulting and drawing up local solutions with input with nearby residents. Residents caution if the overflow car parking project proceeds, the council may need to remove the term all abilities from signage and documents. And residents ask, a car park placed within the playground space that removes much needed playground space. None of those 500 who signed that petition expected you to do that.
Thank you very much.
What can we expect next?
Thank you, Ms Deering. And would you like to hand that petition up, please? If someone can grab that one. Thanks, Councillor Knight.
On the podium.
Thanks, Russell. We're just going to receive that petition there. Thank you. We'll move on to part 6, reports and notices of motion. So 6.1, you'll see there's additional information from officers on item 14.2.2, MRS Amendment 1410, part lot 96 Starflower Road, Henley Brook, on page 370. It was found in the original report that was incorrect. The incorrect ward was inserted and the correct ward is Pearce Ward. And we move on to part 6.2, deputations. And in accordance with current procedures for public participation at agenda forums, all requests for in-person deputations were required by 6 p.m. on Tuesday, the 5th of March 2024. And all written deputations received by 3 p.m. Tuesday, the 5th of March 2024 were circulated with the preliminary agenda on Tuesday evening. 14.3.1, proposed amendment K to the Melbourne Springs Development Plan number 6, lot 9295 Elmridge Parkway, Ellenbrook, DP 6/K on page 452. And we have Ms Naomi Jenkins, not in support of the officer's recommendation. Thanks, Naomi. And you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Naomi Jenkin. I am against the staff recommendation in respect of this application. I am a resident and a ratepayer in the award-winning master planned suburb of Ellenbrook, and I have lived in the village of Malvern Springs for over 15 years. The Malvern Springs Village Centre has been promised to us since 2006. Even today, the Roberts Day webpage states Ellenbrook designed for success. Ellenbrook's outstanding success is due to many factors, but 3 in particular stand out. One of them is walkability. Each village has its own centre that can be reached on foot from any home in less than 10 minutes. In the minutes of the council meeting December 2023, it was confirmed that the furthest homes in Malvern Springs to the district centre of Brook Lane Shopping Centre, which was also planned back in 2006, are over 2 kilometres away, more than a 10-minute walk for some. Our village centre is meant to be the primary focus for community activities and interaction. It is meant to be a destination point easily accessible by foot and is approximately the halfway point of our village. All of our footpaths lead to this location. The village centre was so important in our development plan that it is mentioned 46 times. There are more than 20 options for what can be in our village centre. None of them are simply residential housing. The R30 residential code allows for blocks as small as 260 square metres, meaning the 8 blocks shown in the application may change to include more lots than shown. This location needs to be for community purpose, not residential housing. Please hold the developer true to what we were promised. Please refuse the application and support the 167 submissions put in by members of the public that have objected to residential housing at our Malvern Springs Village Centre location. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms Jenkin. Councillors, are there any questions for Ms Jenkin about the item she's just spoken about? No questions? Okay, thank you very much for that deputation. And we have Ms Zoe Blackstone, Malvern Springs PNC President, not in support of the officer's recommendation. Thank you very much, Zoe, and you have 3 minutes.
Oops. My name is Zoe Blackstone. I'm the president of the Malvern Springs PNC, a small business owner, a mum of 2 daughters and an active parent in our community. Retrospective planning decisions in Western Australia are regarded by the community as a breach of trust. This proposal is a breach of trust. The master planned community of Ellenbrook has been regarded as a benchmark for WA due to the balance of open space and residential density based on accessibility to public transport and other infrastructure. To reverse previous decisions and to increase density of housing, particularly in such high traffic areas such as a school, defeats the purpose of having a plan. The Malvern Springs Development Plan has the village centre as being a focus for community activity and was promised to landholders in the area as a simple space that has the ability to accommodate a range of community activities. This is what we were promised. The statement that the current commercial site has proved unviable for development for more than 18 years is a little skewed given that the majority of housing and indeed the school weren't in place until 2012. Furthermore, in the restrictive covenant for retail in Ellenbrook outside of the main town centre was not lifted until 2018. Therefore, the statement regarding unviable development is unfounded. The site has not been promoted by the developer or the city for a commercial development. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. Very little effort has been undertaken to find a purpose for the site as outlined in this plan. The facilities that are available at the moment across the road from the school are a basketball hoop and swings, and they're well utilised by the community, showing interest in these facilities. The school facilities cannot be used during school time. There has been no formalised survey to request the residents' thoughts on the development of the site other than the applications to develop this into housing and this current proposal, which will remove the space that could become the centrepiece of the community. The site has such potential to be utilised for functions such as market squares, food truck evenings, which are occurring in other village centres in Arbor Grove and Aveley. Once again, Melbourne Springs has been treated by the council as the poor relation. In addition, the small buildings that could be placed on sites such as work at home spaces could provide opportunities for small businesses, owners with the community, community organisations, or even a child and parent centre such as Arbor Grove to provide valuable services which are really lacking in the community. People who bought houses and came to live in the area have done so in the knowledge that eventually that there would be a pleasant centre adjacent to the school, just like all the other areas of Allenbrook. So why not us? The state government is pushing for extra housing sites and we understand that the council is under pressure, but if the council approves this development, it will forever a development area which will have angry residents who will complain, according to the submissions of 97%. Oh, goodness. The increase in vehicle movements and reduction of open space at school pickup will affect any future residents of Melbourne Springs if this proposal is approved.
Very much. Sorry.
Thank you. Sorry, I had loads.
Sorry to end it there. I'll just about to ask, did you have much more there?
I had a little bit more.
How
I
much
tried
more?
to frame it in.
How much have you got? 30 seconds?
Yeah, probably about 30 seconds.
You happy? 30 seconds? Is anyone again?
Okay.
Thanks.
The increase in vehicle movements and reduction of open space at school pickup and drop-off will affect any future residents of Melbourne Springs if the proposal is approved. The body to which these residents will complain will be the council. The state government will declare it as a local government issue. The education department, they're not able to help. Will be at an... Do not let this pass now, sorry. On behalf of my family and the school community request, please deny this application. The large volume of applications to deny this motion in both this proposal and the previous proposal are undoubtedly indicative of the Melbourne Springs community's wish for this space to remain as planned. Please let that stand and restore the trust of Melbourne Springs community. You're our elected members and you're representing us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms Blackstone. Councillors, are there any questions for Ms Blackstone before she goes? Do you want to just come back up? So I think there's some questions. So we had a question from Councillor Howlett.
Thanks, Zoe. That was a really good deputation. I just want, so you're down here as the Melbourne Springs PNC president.
Yes.
Am I right in assuming that you would be speaking on behalf of the parents and citizens of the school?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Bowman, you had a question?
Thanks, Zoe, and thanks for putting your hand up to be a PSC president. I know it's a job, but rewarding. You talked about vehicle movements, and obviously I get, and no doubt all councillors get complaints about school pickups, school drop-offs. You raised an issue that you'd be concerned with the amount of vehicle movements with the extra houses. Would you not be even more concerned if it was developed as a commercial centre, that there'd actually be more vehicles going to that site than the potential 8 houses and the 900 odd square metre commercial?
Yes, I do think we need more parking, but that's definitely a different issue. We're still fighting on that one. To be honest, what I really think we need is a centre for our parents, for the kids. That's really what I'll be pushing for. Yeah.
So the question was about concerns from the amount of vehicles.
Yeah.
You obviously indicated, as PNC president, you're concerned that there'll be more vehicles if there's houses there.
Yes.
Would you not also be concerned if it was developed as a commercial site that there'd actually be even more vehicles than 8 properties?
Yes,
So therefore, not wanting to put words in your mouth, are you against any development whatsoever there of a commercial or residential?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Henderson, did you have a question? No? Are there any other questions for Ms Blackstone from councillors? No? Okay, thank you. We now have an in-person deputation from Mr Tim Trefrey in support of the officer's recommendation. Thanks very much, Tim. You've got 3 minutes. Trefrey.
How's that? Excellent. Thanks, Mayor and councillors, for your time. Just to give you a little bit of background, we're in support of the officer's report, but I think it's important you understand the background of this village centre. The MRS initiated by the WAPC removed the interchange to Tonkin Highway could be over 10, 12 years ago now, in favour of one on Ningara Road, one at the Ellenbrook Town Centre, and possibly one in the future at North Ellenbrook. So the one into Melbourne Springs was removed. What that did is it greatly reduced the number of vehicles passing that village centre because it was going to be an east-west road. Good for the residents, negative impact for the commercial viability of that village centre. The Ellenbrook management could at the time sought to remove the retail side at the time, but they thought, look, we'll leave it in and just see if there was anybody interested still in a smaller centre. Number of years have passed, and the only thing that's happened is the Ellenbrook District Centre and the Woolworths opened up, which made it even harder from a commercial viewpoint to get a full-on shopping centre there. Given the district centre, I don't think we're going to ever get a shopping centre there because it's too close. So what they've asked us to do is to have a look at, based upon the previous proposal that came up to council a couple of years ago, Ellenbrook management instructed us to look at some way to get some sort of retail commercial into that village centre. The proposal in front of you at the moment looks at a small amount of retail, 950 odd square metres, 2 or 3 tenancies. There'll be local operators, not the chain operators, I don't think, in terms of this, the uses that might go in. And that's on the basis that the smaller lot has a smaller development footprint, which means they can buy the site, they might be able to develop a small cafe or some sort of local facility, because at the end of the day, it's going to need to be someone that can actually fund it themselves and buy it and operate it. The 8 residential lots were put there because the balance of the land that really would never be picked up for the larger operation. What that means is that really the focus was on putting a commercial centre there that might actually appeal to the market. We've been trying to sell it for a number of years. We can't force someone to buy a site. Wish we could. It would be easier for Ellenbrook management to sell it as one site to an operator. They'd actually be able to move the site on as one site, no further works, and the site would be sold. They haven't been able to do that. So what this current proposal before council looks at providing a form of a village centre that could actually commercially get sold and developed in the site. Here for any questions. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Tim. I've got a question from Councillor Bowman first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Tim. Tim, when the development occurred, Melbourne Springs, in all the glossy brochures when people bought their blocks, was it shown that there was going to be a village centre there?
Always.
Okay. And you mentioned that it's not viable now because of the interchanges and that as well. But wasn't that previously known as well? And just quoting that the level of floor space generally comprises a supermarket together with a range of local shops, hairdressers, hardware. Given the developments of the town centre and large neighbourhood centres adjacent the Broadway, a likely outcome may be less than 500 square metres of retail. So was it not already known previously that because of where the shops are and the Broadway, that a larger commercial site probably wouldn't be viable?
Which is why they decided to leave it in and try for a smaller centre even back then.
Okay. And so then what has the applicant or the developer, yourself, whoever, what have you done to look at mixed use? Because that was the other thing that was actually promised. Like the promise was, hey, it could be a big commercial centre, but in reality, it'll probably be small because of the Broadway and the shops. We all get that. But if that's the case, it quite clearly says here, the balance of the retail land, the village centre, could be allocated for mixed use, i.e. other retail work from home. Why haven't you put something in that's about work from home? Why have you just gone straight to residential?
The site was marketed several times with all the village centre uses advertised, including mixed use. So it was offered to the site, to the market, with all the uses applicable under the development plan. No one was showing up. And the residences that have proposed could have mixed use as a right if they wanted to in terms of home office, etc.
And so when you've looked at the market, was it as one parcel of land?
It was put on as one parcel of land or other options. They went out, they genuinely tried to sell this a number of times, and they used agents through a marketing campaign. They did have some interest, just for council's information, but the feedback at the time was that there was risk due to the adjacent district centre, so that people didn't proceed.
Okay. So the other 20 discretionary uses under the current plans, they weren't considered as well?
They were all put out there for options for people to use the site for. The site was advertised with all the planning information made available.
So that's been provided to staff and that, because I haven't seen any of that. I've lived in the area for all my life, and I don't recall seeing too much on that. I've seen it a few times. So can that be provided?
It's available. It's in the development plan.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions? No further questions? Okay, thanks very much, Tim.
Thank you.
Might just need to turn that microphone off over there. Thanks. You able to pop that off? Thank you. We also had written deputations from Mr Nicholas Lord-Sol, not in support of the officer's recommendation. Also from Mr Craig Lord-Sol, not in support of the officer's recommendation. Ms Karen Mowat, not in support of the officer's recommendation. And Ms Jessica Shaw, MLA, not in support of the officer's recommendation. Then move on to 14.3.2, existing retaining walls and fill lot 259, number 51, Jinder Road, Kungamaya, DA 585-23 on page 501. And we had an in-person deputation from Simone Solomon, not in support of the officer's recommendation. Thanks, Simone. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor, councillors, CEO and staff. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me this evening. My name is Simone Solomon and I am the neighbour adjoining 51 Jinder Road and the affected party for this retrospective planning application. So I just want to take you back to 2020 when this matter first reared its head. I had noticed a fence and retaining wall had gone up along our common boundary, had not been set back appropriately enough. Alarm bells started ringing. I contacted the council and found out that planning approval was actually not sought for this structure when it should have been. At the time, this was prior to the pool, the spa, infill works, and an outdoor area being constructed. At the time, the city asked Mr Costley to put all works on hold until he had sought approval for the fence and retaining wall. That approval hadn't been sought for. Obviously, I was opposed to this because it is a towering structure, overpowering my yard. There was a lot of damage caused to my yard at the time and my common boundary fence, which my neighbour still hasn't made good on. In addition to this, it is completely not compliant. It cannot be supported by any local or state legislation, and recommendation for approval should not be based on opinion. It should be based on fact. I emailed all of you prior to tonight's meeting, stepping out why this doesn't comply. In addition to that, it also would set a very bad precedent should this get approved, in that it is okay to do what you want, have a complete disregard for the law, for your council, for your neighbour, especially when you've been asked to put works on hold. I don't think it would set a good precedent from a governance perspective. It also does not fit with the area at all. There are no fences of this height currently, as the one that's currently there, and the proposed, the application which is now being presented to you for the council meeting coming up, just proposes to keep it all the same, but just reduce the hedge height slightly. However, this overall combined fence, retaining, hedge, everything, we're still looking at 3.35 metres currently, and it'll become 3.11 metres. I also want it noted that plans submitted by the applicant contain false and misleading information and have unfortunately been used in the report to council. I have had a certified surveyor attend site with a lot of the councillors from the previous council, some of which are here this evening, and they all took their own measurements. And when this was last put to council, everyone voted unanimously against it. Hopefully that will happen again going forward. I think I've pretty much raised all my points. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much. Councillors, are there any questions for Ms Solomon? Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Simone. Simone, you said that there's some false and misleading information.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on what that exactly is?
Yep, absolutely. So in the plan submitted by the applicant and his various various proposals put forward. I think I would have commented on about 6 now to formally gone to council. This will be the 3rd time it's going to council. In terms of the false and misleading plans, the survey submitted was after site work, so after infill had taken place, so it's very hard to give an accurate plan as to what the true levels should be. So once you come and dump sand in, it's very hard to, show what it was previously. However, where the fence and retaining has been constructed along the common boundary, there is a gap between our shared fence and this new structure, which has the natural ground level. And I've had a surveyor, councillors, city staff attend and measure from my side of the fence. If a surveyor was to do it retrospectively from Mr. Costley's side of the fence, they would have to drop a 3-metre pole down, which they'd have to poke around, bearing in mind the current fence is over 3 metres, somehow, and try and measure along the fence. So whatever measurement, if it was certified, which it isn't, it's just a plan that was submitted by Mr. Costley, it wouldn't give a true indication. And it'd be very hard to put forward a proper plan. But despite that, I have had a licensed surveyor attend with staff and councillors, and measurements were taken. So really those measurements should have been used. And thank you, Philip, for clarifying that in your email about the true height of retaining and fence.
Are there any further questions for Ms Solomon?
And my next question. Sorry,
Yep,
Mara.
got a further question?
Yep. In the email you sent us this afternoon,
Yes.
probably refer to table 4, setback of site works and retaining walls. Obviously, the current retaining wall is about 1.5 metres. Are you saying in that the retaining wall should have been set back 1.5 metres from the boundary?
Yes, so if a planning assessment was to be provided in full, it would show that the appropriate setback should be 1.5 metres for the structure that Mr. Costley has constructed. However, it is pretty much on the common boundary, probably set back 20 mil, I would estimate, when it should be 1.5 for a structure that large. It is also, yes, sorry, did I answer the question? I think I got off task.
Councillor McCulloch had a question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Simone, I'm just a little concerned in regards to your statement, as if I were to support the officer's recommendation, how, or other councillors who may support it as well, how we may have a complete disregard for the law. Can you provide any clarification around that?
Absolutely. Because there's no policy, residential design codes, for example, or the local scheme that can support this. What is argued is basically opinion-based as opposed to being based on fact, which is why I did that planning assessment and emailed that around this evening. And I'm happy for a third party to view that if there is dispute over that.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, any further questions for Ms Solomon? No? Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you very
Ms.
much
Solomon.
for your
Thank
time.
you. And that completes our in-person deputations. We move on to 6.3, councillor questions in regard to items on the agenda. If there are any questions from councillors to staff? Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We'll stick with the two that have had deputations first. If we go to the Melbourne Springs item, we heard from one of the deputations that it could be more than 8 lots, residential under R30. Is that correct? And a follow-up question to that is, in passing, if council was to choose to pass this resolution, is it only giving approval for 8 lots, or is it giving approval for R30, which then they potentially squeeze more?
Through you, Madam Mayor. I think it's important to note that what's been provided in terms of the plan that shows a nominal plan of subdivision for 8 lots is just that, and I think that the documentation supplied by the applicant makes this clear it's indicative. What the development plan modification will be looking at doing for a portion of the site is to designate it as residential and apply the R30 coding. So whether that means ultimately when they come to provide a plan of subdivision, it is open to the proponent, of course, not being bound by the indicative plan that they've provided, to configure the subdivision in a different way. But in relation to what they've got, they've indicated with something, a design responding to an R30 coding, that they'd have about 8 lots, but we can't take that as definitive at this point, because as the documentation makes plain, it's indicative.
So, Madam Mayor, follow-up question with that. If it was zoned R30, what's the minimum lot size for an R30? What's the average lot size? And obviously then applying that to roughly the 6,000 square metres that we're talking about, what could be the maximum number of lots that could be developed being R30?
Mr Russell.
Well, what I can tell you without doing too much arithmetic, for the R30 coding, minimum is T60, average of 300 square metres. So if you, and I don't know what the balance of if it's 6,000 square metres in relation to that, it's about, if all of it was, it's about 18 lots, I think, you could conceivably get.
Is there a further question, Councillor Bowman? Oh, Mr Russell, if you could just turn that one off. Thank you.
If we go on to the next item, which is the retrospective fill, the swimming pool and the outdoor spa area and outdoor area. When you put a pool in, are you required to get a building approval?
Through you, Mr Russell.
Yes.
So when you put a building approval in for something like a pool, would you be required on the details to provide the floor level or the average ground level of that site?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't want to speak out of turn. I'm not a building surveyor, so I will take that question on notice to accurately indicate to the councillors what information will be required in that instance.
And
Thank you.
my follow-up question to take on notice, I expect too, what was provided as the ground level height, I forget the technical terms, for when the swimming pool was put in, and in particular, was it what was previously there or what was there with the illegal fill is the question I really want to know. And then final question to add to that one, since we're taking these ones on notice, if the building approval is stamped approved and it has a height of the ground level of what it is now, does that mean that inadvertently the illegal fill or the retrospective fill has been approved because they've had approval based on stamps and approved, the word approved on there? So if perhaps, Madam Mayor, if those could be taken on notice, we can get a response.
Through you, Madam Mayor, may I just clarify, if I understand Councillor Bowman's second question, in relation to looking at the documents that were lodged with the building permit application, what he's seeking to understand is whether any existing ground levels were depicted on that plan that may help answer the contentions, understandably, Ms Solomon has raised around how do you deduce what pre-existing natural ground level was before Mr Costley filled it. That's the rationale for obtaining that information on the building permit. Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, kind of. It's also to see what was approved with the building approval for the swimming pool and what was the level, and I can't say natural ground level, but the level that it would be at then as well. And therefore, if it was actually stamped approved, which my understanding the swimming pool did get approved, and if it inadvertently had the new levels, which is because of the retrospective illegal fill, does that a building approval stamp supersede any planning approval? That's where I'm going with those questions.
Mr Russell, if you can help with that or take that on notice. Okay. Thank you. Councillors, are there any other questions for staff? Councillor Howlett.
Thank you. My question, I don't know if I can actually ask it because it pertains to...
It's items.
it's on, yeah, it's an agenda item
Tonight's
to
item.
the the list of accounts paid. On page 578, the Brakovich demolition, there's $87,780 for asbestos removal at 21 Junction Parade. So I have a question pertaining to that. However, as it relates to a contract with the city and obviously confidential information, I would perceive, am I able to ask that question now, or does that need to be submitted through the staff?
Behind closed doors.
Through the chair, it depends on the nature of the question. So what you're doing in this item is receiving the statement of financial accounts. So as long as it relates to a statement or the expenditure, it's fine. But you can't ask questions that are detail into the nature of contracts.
Well, I guess it bridges that a little bit because I'm questioning.
If you're not
the
sure,
value.
then yeah, we'll
Right,
send it through
thank
to the
you.
staff, please, and that will cover us to make sure
Thank you.
then. Okay. We can do it at the end, but
Sorry, Madam Mayor,
can we do it behind closed doors at the end of the meeting?
you can, but it's just as easy to send the question in writing and a written answer will be provided to you and to Councillor Howlett and all the other councillors.
Okay. Right, thank you very much. Councillors, are there any other questions pertaining to tonight for staff? Councillor Bowman? Yeah. If there's another question, you've got a question?
Mine's in regards to 14.1.1, which is the annual meeting of electors. And councillors may have seen the questions that are submitted and some of the answers. It's in particular into motion 17. The response I got was the Mayor and CEO have had informal discussions with Bassendean counterparts with their advice that there was no appetite for a boundary change. Can I ask when that discussion, informal discussions were had, was that with you, Madam Mayor, or previous Mayor? And was that with the CEO and Mayor of Bassendean?
You had a conversation with the Mayor at Bassendean, phone call, that's all. And I spoke separately to the CEO. I'm happy to give that advice.
Councillor Bowman, I had a phone call from the Bassendean Mayor, Kath Hamilton, an informal phone call. I think that was through discussions that you had had with her at the EMRC. So that's the only informal discussion I'm aware of in relation to this item.
Okay, and the response that there's no appetite for a boundary change, is that from us or from them?
I'm not sure where that came from. Are you supplying that information? Is that something that someone has spoken to you about?
Madam Mayor, if you may have not had a chance to look at the questions that I normally submit, I'll admit I usually submit quite a few, this time not as many. Question number 2 was motion 17, is community support not demonstrated by the motion passing at the annual electors meeting? Why would the City Swan engage with the town of Bassendean and ascertain their receptiveness for collaboration? The response that was provided, Madam Mayor, and all councillors have got this because I've requested any response to items that I ask questions on the council agenda goes to everyone. The answer was the Mayor and CEO have had informal discussions with the Bassendean counterparts with their advice that there was no appetite for a boundary change. So my follow-up question is, who didn't have the appetite for a boundary change? Are we saying Bassendean or Swan?
I'll ask the CEO to respond to that because he may have had a conversation I'm not aware of.
Again, through the chair, so I also had a conversation with the CEO of Town of Bassendean at the back of an EMRC briefing. It must have been roughly at the same time that you or the Mayor had previously had a conversation. We discussed procedurally, and the CEO said, well, as far as he was concerned, his understanding there was no appetite from his organisation. The Mayor had a similar one-on-one conversation with the Mayor, and having conferred afterwards, we were not aware of any strong desire being expressed to her community or ours for the form of a boundary adjustment or all the efforts that would go through it.
So, Madam Mayor, that goes back to my first question. Would community support not be demonstrated by a motion passed at the annual electors meeting?
CEO?
Thank you. So I put it in context. There are 100,000 electors in the city of Swan. There are 30,000 odd electors who vote. A plebiscite of electors can be undertaken as part of a referendum. 65 electors coming along can express a view, but it's not a plebiscite. At the same time that I was given the advice from our CEO of Town of Bassendean, my staff were also sending me copies of social media posts made from local residents who were expressing a strong desire for no boundary change. So whilst it's the view of a select number of residents, in the absence of a broad-scale change, such as a petition, now you'd be aware, Councillor Bowman, a petition of 250 electors can initiate a process, but we haven't received that, nor have we received any form of social media pushback or social media engagement or letters to the city formally seeking that we initiate a boundary change. So you do have the view of some electors at that meeting, but I said that is not a plebiscite, nor was there widespread advice to us that we needed to consider a boundary adjustment.
Any further question?
Madam Mayor, my next question is on 14.2.2. Again, drawing your attention to the questions I submitted beforehand. Question number 6, I was asking a question about the distance for the odour buffers for the wastewater treatment plants. Can staff just further elaborate on that? They've said that it's a distance of anywhere from 10 to 150 metres. Why is there a varying scale? My understanding was there was a certain amount and then it increased if it was actually a wastewater treatment as well.
Thank you, Mr van der Leen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If we look at the EPA guidance of assessment of environmental factors, separation distances, it addresses the buffer areas in relation to pumping stations, wastewater treatment, wastewater pumping stations specifically. And I think that is the bit that is relevant to this area, as it is not a treatment plant that you find in Hennebrook, but it is a pumping station. And for pumping stations, the buffer is determined by the size of the pump, essentially. So the larger the volume of wastewater that will be pumped through that site, the further the buffer distance. And that buffer distance then varies between 20 and 150 metres.
And then just so I understand, is it a pumping station or a wastewater treatment that Watercorp has on Millhouse Road?
I'm not sure. I don't know, Mr. Coton, if you don't know exactly. I'm not aware of the one in Millhouse Road, exactly what it is there.
All right, we can take that question on notice and get staff to reply to you.
And Madam Mayor, the reason I asked that question is my understanding was when the closest urban blocks were developed near that pumping station or wastewater treatment, there was a certain distance, and also that the one block that is on Millhouse, which most would consider Aveley, which was 2.5 acres right next door, had a covenants on there because of the issue, and that is more than 50 to 100 metres away. So just trying to see why, if that's a pumping station, has the rules changed? If it's a treatment one, I can understand that.
Through you, Mr van der Leen, and if you need to get back to
We'll take
Councillor
that on
Bowman,
notice.
we can take that on notice.
Yeah, and come back
Thank
to
you.
council.
Are there any other questions on 6.3 from councillors for staff? Yep, Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Mayor. Page 117, the recommendation for the local planning scheme for public advertising. Under point 2 of the recommendation, it refers to adopting without modification the draft plan. I had some discussions with Mr van der Leen today about some minor matters within the plan and a couple of little typos. Without modification means that they would not be addressed at this stage, or would we change that to ensure that we fix up a couple of little bits and pieces?
Through you, Mr van der Leen.
Through Madam Mayor, the issues identified by Councillor Henderson were very minor, so it's typos essentially. Those can be dealt with in two ways. we can advertise the scheme as it is at the moment and then address that during the submission period, and when it comes back to council, make those corrections. Or if Councillor Henderson so wish, he can put an alternate or a modification to this resolution to indicate that the CEO be authorised to make those minor modifications before it is advertised. But either way, it wouldn't make a huge difference because of the nature of those required modifications.
A further question?
I think that answers principally. Indeed, there wouldn't be any significant change. They are very minor. So would the CEO be satisfied if I made that change just to be able to clean it up before it goes out to public so that those things are dealt with?
Mr. CEO?
Thank you. And through the chair, obviously without seeing the corrections, but based on Mr van der Linde's advice, I have no issue with making minor typographical corrections or grammatical corrections.
Okay, well, I'll move a amendment at the meeting just to clean it up. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, councillors, are there any last questions on 6.3? Any questions in regard to items on the agenda for staff? Oh, it's a very quick meeting tonight. Thank you. So on part 7, you'll see alternate motions. So there have been a notice of intention, or has been a notice of intention to provide alternate motions. They've been given by the following elected members in accordance with Part 8 of the Meeting Procedures Local Law. These alternate motions are indicative only and are subject to submissions by elected members for the council meeting. So I'd like to thank everyone in the gallery for coming tonight, and those that gave deputations, your petition, and those written submissions. And we may see you next week at our ordinary council meeting. And I'd like to close the meeting now at 6:48 p.m. Thank you.
So through the chair, you have to go through the end of closing the meeting, and then you can go back and check with council members, but the meeting process according to meeting procedures officially closes at that point.
So if you want to remain behind, or there are any councillors who'd like to go through the process? Okay, we're not quite finished now. So Councillor Bowman would like to go around and, no, you don't want it? Oh, sorry, you want to just complete the process? Okay. What's the actual resolution? I think it was.
Indeed. So going through the chair, at the end of the meeting, which is the stage you're at now, having concluded it, this is the opportunity for anyone to raise whether they intend to do an alternate motion.
Okay. So we'll count. In the room. So the consensus is we'll go around the room, and if anyone would like to move an alternate motion for next week, give notice of an alternate motion. You can go around individually. Councillor Ringo, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Jones, Councillor McCulloch, Councillor Knight, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Brodovnik, okay, and Councillor Howlett. Thank you. And Deputy Mayor? No? Okay, thank you very much.